Hi, my name is Reming Liu. I'm a PhD student in the lab of Arjun Krishnan at Michigan State University. Today I'm going to present PecanPy, a fast, efficient, and parallelized Python implementation of Notovec. Recently, many machine learning algorithms are adapted to solve a variety of biological problems, such as gene annotations and gene network inference. To fully leverage those algorithms in network biology, it is crucial to learn the representation of nodes in the biological networks. Notovec, which is a random walk-based embedding method, has been widely used for that purpose. However, the original implementations of Notovec, one of which is written in Python and the other one in C++, are inefficient both in terms of computation and memory usage, and hence are unable to handle large-scale dense networks. Here, we have developed a new Python implementation of Notovec with great improvement in both memory usage and runtime. Now, let me give a little bit of context about how Notovec works and how we manage to improve the computation performance and memory usage. The main objective of Notovec is to convert any given arbitrary networks with nodes and edges to some d-dimensional vector space, where each node is represented by a vector in that space. It does so by first generating sequences of nodes using the transition probabilities calculated based on the network structure or so-called random walks. But different from other random walk-based embedding methods, Notovec performs second-order random walk, which not only depends on the current position, but also the previous position where it came from. And thus the total number of transition probabilities grows quadratically with respect to the total number of edges instead of linearly as for the first-order random walks. These random walks are then used as a corpus to train the skipgram architecture from Notovec, resulting in the d-dimensional vector space. From a programmatic standpoint, the Notovec program consists of 4 stages: loading network, preprocessing second-order transition probabilities, generating random walks, and finally training the skipgram architecture. As it is observed that training only takes up a small fraction of time in the original Python implementation, we aimed at optimizing only the first 3 stages. First, instead of using network X for the underlying graph data structure as in the original Python implementation, we developed 2 dedicated graph data structures, one for sparse network using compact sparse row representation, or CSR, and one for dense network using full matrix. On one hand, CSR is very compact in memory and thus uses less memory, and it is more cache optimized, resulting in faster computation. On the other hand, dense matrix can save memory if the input graph is very dense by omitting the explicit indices of the edge weights. Second, as mentioned briefly before, the number of second-order transition probability grows quadratically with respect to the number of edges, causing high memory usage for storing all the transition probabilities. We remedied this by computing the second-order transition probabilities as the walk is being generated, without having to pre-compute and save. Finally, we parallelized the random walk generation process, which was not done in the original Python implementation. We have developed 3 different modes of the program, each of which is more optimized for networks with different sizes and densities. Precomp, which uses CSR as underlying graph data structure and store all precomputed second-order transition probabilities, is suitable for medium to small and sparse networks. Sparse on the fly, which also uses CSR but compute transition probabilities on the fly, is optimal for medium to very large and sparse networks. Dense on the fly, which uses full matrix as underlying data structure and compute transition probabilities on the fly, is good for medium to large-sized dense networks. More details of different implementations could be found in the table below. One more thing to note is that the original implementations can only work with integer-type node IDs, while our new implementation also supports string-type IDs, giving more flexibility to users. Next, we tested these implementations on multiple networks, including the 3 networks used in the original Notovec paper, which are Block Catalog, PPI, and Wikipedia. We also included a variety of biological networks with a wide range of network sizes and densities, from BioGrid, a medium-sized sparse network, to giant tissue naive, a medium-sized dense network, to SSN200, a very large and sparse network, and etc. The details of network stats are listed in the table here. Moving on to figure 1, we have our first result, which is the runtime comparison of each one of the 4 stages of Notovec between different implementations. Each colored line corresponds to a network and each column corresponds to an implementation of Notevec. Looking at plot A, which shows the comparison of training time, there's a bump at the second column indicating the skipgram training process takes longer to run for C++ compared to the Python implementations, which uses the Janssen package. For walking time, as shown in plot B, the original C++ implementation is the fastest, followed by the 3 new implementations. Note that although C++ is the fastest in this stage, the absolute difference in runtime between the C++ implementation and that of the new ones are only seconds or even fractions of a second, while the difference against the original Python implementation could be more than a minute. As for preprocessing time, the new PecanPy implementation clearly outperforms the original Python implementation and is compatible with the C++ implementation. Furthermore, since sparse on the fly and dense on the fly implementation do not calculate transition probabilities in advance, they do not have preprocessing time, which could save minutes of calculation time. Finally, the network loading time are roughly equal across implementations, as indicated by the 4 relatively flat lines. However, for dense network like giant tissue naive, loading as full matrix is significantly faster than sparse array. And I also want to point out that large and dense networks like giant tissue naive failed to process by the original implementations due to memory limitation, which was bounded to 200 gigabytes. Now let's look at the overall performance in terms of the total runtime and total memory usage in Figure 2. All 3 new implementations have shorter runtime compared to the original implementations. For memory usage, the on-the-fly implementation uses significantly less memory compared to other implementations that pre-compute and store the transition probabilities. To give you a more concrete feeling of how much improvement is made, let's look at a specific case. For string network, represented by the bluish-gray line, the new implementation reduced the runtime from more than 5 hours down to just slightly over a minute. And even more remarkably, the memory usage is reduced from more than 100 gigs down to less than just 1 gig. To summarize, we have developed a new implementation of Notevec with 3 different modes, each of which is optimized for networks with different sizes and densities. The new implementations are significantly faster and more memory efficient and are able to handle large and dense networks that are intractable to the original implementations. And finally, the PecanPy software is freely available at GitHub. Thank you for listening.